switch to the final topic, because I think we've also, everything we've said, like Lisa was saying, is kind of expanded. It's like, it's one learner, but how do we get this across to all learners? And we all, everyone here is part of very large organizations, and growing. And so how do we scale learning? Some of you have talked about, to me in the past, about cohorts. Andy and I were in a cohort together. Celine, using cohorts and breakout rooms was apparently got really good feedback on that. So I'm going to send you into breakout rooms, and I'm going to give you like five or so minutes to talk about taking this, all these good things we've talked about. How do we scale that to the whole company? All right.
Sorry, Andy.
What is a good sign when everyone stays till the very last second of the breakout rooms?
We were just getting started.
It's never long enough either.
Time flies.
Yeah. All right. So who wants to share what their discussion was about?
I guess I'll go. I started off by saying that we scale with leading by teaching. So our leaders are really champions in leading, and especially with a global company, because we have, just to give you some complexities about the size of Ford, we have over 200,000 employees, and 116,000 of those are hourly, and then the rest are contract, purchase service, and then with salary employees. So when you think about it, the scalability of it has to be a universal, but not so tightly, because our global regions have their own training that they do and their own languages. And I mean, there's so many complexities to it and so many vendors we work with. So we found that leading by teaching helps us to get to shape up those leaders that can teach, but also give us a pool of people that we can pull on to be able to help facilitate, especially our leadership program, and move away from formal instructor-led training with vendor-led, led by vendors, to get to this leading by teaching. But then we said not all leaders are the same. You have some good ones, you have some bad ones. So that's been some kind of pluses and minuses. But that's one approach that we've used for scalability, is leading by teaching.
Just a quick follow-up question on that. What does that look like? Are they encouraged to do their own lunch and learns, or like, what is that?
So it's supposed to be organic, where leaders rise to the top of the, who rise to the top of the occasion, are treated as individuals who are experts, like in their domain or expertise. And then we have a pool of them that we call upon to be able to coach and mentor other groups. And it's done a lot more through mentoring than it is formal training. We're seeing a lot more of mentoring come across than formal training, and trying to use it in that aspect.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how it's been shaped up now, especially since COVID, and globally too. So now it used to be just North America centric. Now it's anybody around the world can join these mentoring sessions and discussions, and they can teach each other how to do Python. I'm seeing a lot of that in the technical space, especially as we up-ramp in our content libraries around degree, around LinkedIn Learning, Pluralsight, Coursera. People are taking these opportunities to use some of this off-the-shelf materials and really shape a mentoring session around it, and just guide people through the discussion and how they would apply it.
Interesting. Wow. That's the first I've heard of something like that, and it seems like it's working. So
in pockets, I think we need to get a little bit better at it if we're going to really scale learning in the shape. And then how we define learning now has changed too. So now I can have a conversation at the water cooler or on Zoom or WebEx with my leader. That's a learning opportunity. My performance discussion is a learning opportunity. So now what we're classifying as learning has changed. The definition of learning has changed too.
Fantastic to hear that. That's very good.
Yeah.
Lisa, I want to get your thoughts here, because I know from prior experience, and I think Andy would probably attest to this, with the professional services firms, like, you built an entire campus. We would do a lot of traveling to go to locations and do training, and that was how to scale. It was just like a huge thing, right? Hundreds of people that would go. How are you guys now trying to do the same, touch that many people, but in a kind of a virtual setting?
Yeah, I mean, it's been a challenge. Obviously, COVID has been threw us all on our head, topsy-turvy. But one of the things I shared in our group too is I don't think it's just COVID that we've always had to consider scalability. And I'm assuming at PwC it's similar, but a lot of what we do in the last few years has really been focused on partnering with our global learning and development team and thinking about designing solutions that work for a big US firm, but also a very tiny, and I kept using Bermuda, like a firm like Bermuda. It's much smaller, less resources. How do you design the same piece of content that applies in both situations and can be scaled up to a huge center, but down to a conference room or a Zoom call or a Skype call, whatever that is. I do feel like COVID has pushed us to really evaluate like what has to be instructor led, what is super critical instructor led. And I do believe that there are some things that are more valuable instructor led, but it's not maybe as big or as broad as we initially thought. And there's a lot of ways you can effectively deliver content in a smaller micro learning, a smaller video, a smaller, performance support resource, something like that. That can be just as effective and get people what they need in the moment of need.
Yeah.
I don't know, Andy, if you have to add on to that too in your
I do, yeah. And I could share the program that I worked on. It was called the Digital Accelerator Program, which we started a few years ago, where we had to upskill people in topics such as, like you mentioned, AI and data analytics, which involves Python, things like that. So it was virtual. It was basically a cohort based, and they would go through training virtually. They had lessons, and they would also have to do projects, as I'm a huge proponent of, especially when you're doing technical skills, like you need a project to do it.
Yeah.
And so they had that, and they had team projects, so they would work together. So it was a combination of sort of virtual, where they would learn this, and then there was in-person events as well, where they meet up and discuss these things and share the work that they've done. And then we have a badging program that's a little more formal, where after they complete the learning itself, and then they also apply it to their job, then they can get different types of badges that they can earn as well. So we had a pretty robust process, and still ongoing right now, where it's, again, it was a blended learning solution that they were able to do.
How big were the cohorts, and how did you measure that people were applying the knowledge on their job?
Yeah, so overall, it was each cohort was around 200 to 300 people. Okay. And then in terms of we tracked it. I mean, we had all the metrics. We were able to track their progress, and we were also tracked to see who were getting badges, because badges they're not mandatory, they're optional. So we could see, and there's different types of badges. There was a skill badge, which is where they're actually applying the learning, and then there was also just the knowledge badge, which was them just doing the training itself. And so, yeah, we have dashboards and things like that where we're actually tracking the progress across the board.
Interesting. Alec, you've mentioned to me before that you guys always use cohorts.
Yeah, we always do cohorts because, honestly, because I don't have enough time to do like individual training, right? So we always just kind of group everybody together. We were doing new hires in like every 2 weeks or so when hiring was on a regular cadence. And then cohorts work out great, right? Because you're peer-to-peer learning, as Marcia had mentioned before. You got your friends there, or your peers that you can rely on to ask questions to if you don't want to go to the instructor and stuff like that. I will say, going back to what I think it was Lisa or Marcia that was just mentioning it was saying, oh, we've trying to figure out like what has to be done in person and what doesn't. I absolutely agree. There's a lot of stuff that I teach that doesn't have to be done in person. In fact, my director is getting me to record more and more videos so we can send those out to people for micro learning. The problem is, going back to the first point of discussion, motivating learners who say they don't have time for training. And I'm pointing to my OneNote, I'm sorry. I'm not just pointing off in space. But I found, even with new hires coming into the company with no straight tasks or projects to work on right away, if I give them a list of training to complete, but no set time to do it, it doesn't get done. Similarly, or it will get done, but it's not as, done as rapidly. Similarly, if I say you're going to attend a class with me and we're going to do this, they'll come to the class. There's like an accountability piece there with a live instructor. Whereas if I said, instead of attending the class, here's a video of exactly the class, everything I would say, you can watch it at your own pace. I've done this before. I've asked people a couple of days later, have you watched the video? No, I haven't had time. If I had those 2 hours on their calendar, they would have done it. You know what I'm saying? And I even do things where, for example, to earn a certification for this one class we do, when I first started teaching it, I would teach 4 sessions and then assign the certification exam and say, go forth and complete it whenever you want. People were not completing it. Now I have the 4 classes and I have a 5th session where I tell people, I'm literally not going to do anything. I'm going to be on the call and answer emails and ignore you guys, but I'm going to be on the call and you're going to have 2 hours and it's going to be called exam taking time, and people come and they take that test. You know what I mean? It's something like carving out that time really makes it purposeful. And although I completely agree with, I think it was Lisa that said, are trying to find what doesn't have to be taught in person. A lot of times that comes down to like a bottom line thing. I'm the main trainer. There's only one of me. Where do I spend my hours, right? But when we're having a trainer, people, I swear, they pay attention more. They're more accountable. I don't know.
Yeah, it's interesting. Celine, you talked about you guys use a lot of the cohorts, and you said to me when we spoke that you got a lot of positive feedback about breakouts, like we just did now. Like, yeah, how's that working out for you guys? And this thing about the live element, because actually I haven't used the word with it, but it's live cohorts, right? That's kind of an important element of it.
Yeah, so it's good. And I think that the thing that we really need to do now is think about how we can continue to scale it more and more. But I think that similar to what we've kind of talked about already, people really enjoy being able to talk things out and share what they know and exchange knowledge because it feels active and it feels like they're really actually learning. So the breakouts have been the single, I guess I'll backtrack a little bit. Something that I've been running with a certain portion of our organization are these lunch and learns that are a combination of leader-led and breakouts. So we have a leader who does a little bit of kind of like an AMA, and it's really short. It's like 15 minutes of an AMA on a certain topic that's really relevant to those teams. And then we have a breakouts activity that's very related to that topic. So the one that we just did was on empathetic leadership, and we had a sales leader who she spoke about her basically experience as a leader and what she had to say. This AMA sheet was again something that the teams were able to put in questions for. And then the breakouts was actually, we had some role playing of having those situations where, you know, you have an employee who has been really difficult and you need to talk to them, talk them through, you know, like what's happening, what's not. There were, I think, 3 or 4 different scenarios that they could choose from. And we tried to really tailor it to things that we thought those teams were going to find relevant in their everyday lives. And so I think going back to your question about the breakouts, it's really just being able to give them that active experience. And then at the end of it, there's a call to action to meet with their groups again if they want to check in on certain things. And I think that's actually the piece that hopefully continues on. And I need to, I've checked in with a few groups, and I do know there are some groups that have continued to meet. I don't think it happens all the time. So if anyone has a solution to that, I would love to hear it. But I think that there are people who do come back together and kind of continue learning in that small group. And to Alex's point, it's really about just creating the accountability, because when you know someone else is going to be on the call, you kind of actually feel like you have to do it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's such a huge, and it's like, I think there's this thing like scaling online learning. People immediately think, well, we need to bring tech in. We need tech is the way to scale. But I think it's actually, if you get it down to the human relationship here, you can scale it much quicker, right? Like you're saying, it's those accountability groups. It's the building of those relationships that they keep meeting and they keep checking in with each other. And that's actually, I think, how you make a meaningful change. So very, very cool that that's working out for you guys. I'd love to, you kind of shared a couple of examples there. I'd love to use the last 10 minutes and kind of go around for Marsha, you have something? You okay?
I was going to say something, but go ahead.
No, go for it.
No, I think one of the things we know, Andrew, from Rite of Passage, and I think from my own experience too at PwC, is the power of community.
Yeah.
And having the community platform as well, and get, which we can talk about. And I think you have a great, to promote you, I think you have a great article on group learning that sort of applies experiences that you learn from Rite of Passage. I think is a great article for everybody to read.
Yeah, thank you. And that's, I'll post that in the channel, but that's the off-topic groups is where you talk about people can like get to know each other and like ask questions. And yeah, one of the companies I'm working with, you will know probably, Celine, they use Slack a lot for that. And they'll have like separate channels for these cohorts, for the learning cohorts. And so people can just kind of like keep in touch with each other. And there's some prompts that they send them like throughout the year to go in and use that channel as well. So we have another guest. It's awesome.